Hello, welcome back to Top Shelf Books. Thank you for sticking with us. If you are joining us for the first time, we're going to hopefully add some books to your TBR pile. Welcome to episode 3. Today we are looking at epistolary writing, so writing through the form of letters, journal entries, text messages, things of that nature. It's quite an old form, and in fact our oldest book in this selection is going to go back to 1492, so it's been around for a while, and hopefully I'm going to add some titles to your list that maybe you have not come into contact before. I have to dedicate this particular episode to two amazing ladies, my sister who loves epistolary writing, and my dear Z, my dear friend who suggested this topic. So thanks to her, I did a deep dive into the history of this form. So why this is a particularly poignant, important topic to me. If you are a person who writes, you may feel that you express yourself far better in text or on paper or by typing than you do by speaking aloud. I am one of those people, and I have always built wonderful friendships based on letters. I have a friend in Sweden, for example. We bonded over the rock band Rush, and we got to meet each other, thankfully enough. And I think both of us were a little nervous, but we had built such a solid and wonderful friendship that it was a fantastic meeting, and we are still friends to this day, although I have been a particularly poor correspondent lately, and I need to fix that. But recently, I have built some fandom friendships with folks that I write to every day, some in Scotland, some in Kentucky, stretched out in states across the US as well as across the world. And I'm so thankful for those. And there's something really magical about getting a letter, a card, something written, an email from someone whom you're really eager to engage with. You want to hear what they have to say. And I always think of the 90s rom-com, You've Got Mail, because, Kathleen Kelly goes into that wonderful narration about, I have mail from you. And she's so excited. And I certainly have friends that I feel that way about when I see mail from them. If you are a person who likes epistolary novels, or if you've done any digging about them, you will find that there are tons of lists about these things on the internet. They are very popular. So what makes this particular format so popular? I would like to suggest that author Sam Gosling probably knows. He wrote about snooping. I think that there's something in this novel form that appeals to the part of us that wants to go through people's stuff. We get to lean over their shoulders, read their letters, and piece things together as we do. Along with the pleasure of snooping, we also often get the pleasure of solving. A lot of epistolary novels happen to be, if not mysteries entirely, they contain some mystery, something that we are adding, the letters, the facts, the text messages, we add them up. And recently, some mystery novels have used podcast formats for this as well. So the accumulation of information to solve a puzzle is part of the appeal. If you are like me, you get up in the morning and you reach for your phone, despite all of the internet articles that have told you not to do this, that you should meditate, that you should, rejoice in your blessings, whatever it should be that you should be doing, which is not looking at your email. And if you are like me, you get lots of email, and lots of it is bothersome and stressful. And I think the epistolary novel serves the function of being like those letters from our friends. These are letters we actually want to read because we want to solve the mystery. We want to dig into the story, unlike the 6,000 emails accumulating in my box, causing me stress, but never from you, dear reader. You are always welcome to send me messages. Dracula Daily has taken the interwebs by storm recently. I think Bram Stoker would be pleased. I hope that he is somewhere with Dickens and Dickens is just fuming because he's probably saying Dracula wasn't a serial. They should be doing Great Expectations daily or something along those lines. But Dracula is one of the most famous epistolary novels, of course, so I thought that it was appropriate to begin with it. If you need more Dracula in your life in an epistolary format, you can get some similar content in Kate Carey's Bloodline or Elizabeth Kostova's The Historian. So more vampires, more letters, more mysteries. Even if you are already a fan of this type of novel, you may not know that you can find a wonderful trove of epistolary writing that most people don't think about because today we can travel much more easily than you could in the past, and we have the wonderful internet, so we can look at just about anything there is. But in the 18th and 19th centuries, people could not easily travel, and those that did tended to write home and tell people about what they saw, the animals that were different from home, the landscapes, the experiences. So chapter 26 of the Cambridge History of Travel Writing examines the intersection between this form, this letter writing form, and travel writing. In my own research, I look at a lot of hunting diaries. So particularly in the 19th century, men were sent throughout the British Empire. The ones that I tend to focus on tend to be in India. But these young men are sent there as part of the bureaucracy, and they write home. And one of the things they write about is their hunting exploits, and they want to kill off my wonderful, beautiful tigers. This depresses me, but it's one of the places I can learn about tigers. So if you have exhausted all of the novels in letter format, you might take a look at travel writing. Okay, in a recent episode, I promised you I'd get to the books faster, and I lied, because that's apparently what I do when I'm recording things. So here we are at last at the books, and I have given you a wide range, some are very old, of books that look here at love triangles and ruin reputations. So let's dig into these a little bit. A Parish of Two is fascinating, not just because of its age, but because it has two authors. So you have two voices that are in communication, and it's a love triangle. They are two men talking about one woman. Pamela, of course, she is going to avoid the destruction of her reputation, and that is not a spoiler because it's literally the subtitle of the book, so you'll be fine. But I thought it fit with this bunch, and it's often cited as one of the earliest of this format. Love letters between a nobleman and his sister. You have a sibling trying to seduce the other sibling, tisk tisk. And The Anatomy of Desire, more recent work, if you can listen to it in audio format, I totally recommend it. Wonderful, wonderful voice actors. Also written by two people. They are sharing a pseudonym, L.R. Dorn, and it looks at podcasting as a format, and it also looks at a love triangle between two a man and a woman, and the center of the triangle is another woman, and it is wonderful and amazing, and I super recommend it. As we accumulate episodes, one of the things that I hope that you'll notice is that I'm going to try to make sure to get as many voices in there as possible. Of course, I can only talk from my own experience, so there are going to be things that I overlook or just don't think of, and I apologize for those blind spots. If you see them, you can always help to educate me. I'm learning all the time, and I do make mistakes, but I will try to get those voices in there for you. And these works are going to deal with class and race and colonialism. I cannot find an English version of The Prisoner of Love, Diego San Pedro. It is the oldest epistolary work in this collection, 1492, and it looks at relationships that are complicated by the class of the people involved with them, so working class versus upper class. So definitely worth your time if you can read it in the original or track down the translation. And then Jultane and Houseboy, both going to look at some of the problems of colonialism and dealing with the colonizers and going back to one's home country. And then you're going to get more with class in The White Tiger, the narrator trying to accumulate wealth and trying to change his class status. I promised you in one of our first episodes that I would try to give you the touchstone books as well as something that was maybe off the beaten path. This is one of those touchstones. If you look up a list of epistolary books, you're going to find 84 Charing Cross Road, and it's about books. So book lovers, rejoice if you have not added this one to your list or experienced it yet. There is a reason that the play King Lear is taught across the country in graduate school classrooms and undergraduate school classrooms. The complicated relationship between parents and children, it's not something that has changed much since Shakespeare's time. So I wanted to highlight some of those various relationships here. We need to talk about Kevin dealing with grief over a child's actions. Where'd you go, Bernadette? A daughter that is wondering why her mother has taken the actions that she has and trying to live up to the mother's kind of imagined presence more than the real one. And then Marier's work, we are looking at communicating with a daughter and trying to pass on lessons. More of those complicated parent-children relationships. The magical language of others deals some with race and immigration as well as parent-children. So writing to a child to kind of explain one's choices. Don't Cry for Me, we have a father who is dealing with his son's sexuality and trying to come to terms with that. And then On Earth We're Briefly Gorgeous, writing to the mother and trying to put oneself in the mother's shoes to try to understand her actions, to try to justify the choices that she makes. And if you have not experienced that particular book or the poetry that this author has also written, very beautiful language. So female friendship is something that's really worth celebrating. If you want to take a look at it in nonfiction form, the book Text Me When You Get Home is worth your time. And of course, I will mention male friendship as well. The book Boyfriends, 2 words, by Michael Peterson looks at male friendship. So these are some epistolary novels that look at relationships between women as they write to one another, and how that friendship grows and changes, what they say to one another, what they leave out. So definitely, I think, worth celebrating and very fun to watch as the reader. I have to admit that when I began researching this type of writing in a little more depth, I wasn't thinking that I was going to run into much philosophy, but here we are. The Kempton Waste letters were published anonymously, written by 2 authors, and kind of for its time anyway, racy exploration of ideas about sexuality. Persian letters, you have characters moving out of their country and into the world and writing about what they see, so sort of like that travel writing I told you about. Address Unknown, we are looking at the rise of Nazi Germany from both a German and a Jewish viewpoint. So all of these are going to delve into some philosophy along with the letters that they place on the page. Again, a touchstone book. If you look up lists of these type of novels, you're going to run into the Guernsey Literary and Potato Peel Society. It has 2 authors, so that's always fun when you have a book that is written back and forth in letters, is to actually have 2 voices. It takes a very good author to manage to mimic a couple of different voices, especially if they're radically different, and we're going to see some of that here shortly. I hesitate to include the middle book here. I'm going to let you decide when you read it for yourself if you think it fits into love stories. I don't want to spoil anything for you, but it was the best place for it in this group. Some epistolary novels that look at transness and the the very definition is something that is fluid and in flux, and these books really make a lot of that. So Nettle Black, we have a character that initially dresses as a man, and I'll let you decide in your reading what gender pronouns they should pick up or that sits best with them or what their transformation is about. The Woman Priest, a much, much older work, a woman dressing as a man to get close to the man that she loves. Obviously, a Shakespearean trope there. It's been around for a while, but I thought you'd enjoy the fact that it's also been in this type of writing for a while, and it goes quite a while back. So anyone that tries to tell you that these sorts of things are new issues, they are not. They are as old as human beings. Maybe you don't just want a typical reading experience. Maybe you literally want to tear a book apart. In that case, you want either Bats of the Republic or S. They are epistolary. You can completely change your reading experience depending on where you dive in. In the case of S, there is different colored writing on the margins of the pages, and if you can follow different colors to find out what that particular person was talking about, and it definitely changes how you look at the book. So something you can quite literally take apart. This was another combination that I sort of hesitated over because I'm not sure Night Owl and Dogfish absolutely fit the standard definition of sisters, but I'll let you read and decide. I'm just going to throw things out there for you to check out. Adorable book, by the way, written for slightly younger readers, but super cute. And then, of course, The Color Purple being one of the famous examinations of sisterhood. I'm cheating on this one a little bit. So the key is a husband and a wife looking at their marriage, and anyone who's been in any kind of relationship, whether it's familial or friendship or romantic, we know that we can look at an event with another person and we can both experience it in completely different ways. Those of you that have siblings, one of my favorite activities with my siblings is for us to share memories, and sometimes they have memories of things that I have no memory of whatsoever. Are they trolling me? Did these things really happen? Who knows? But I'm sort of cheating with this one. I wanted to include Department of Speculation because it's such a wonderful book and an amazing kind of deconstruction of a marriage. It's not technically epistolary though, so I just wanted to put it with this one. I love books that kind of live happily together, so I'm marrying these books for you. The wonderful friend to whom I dedicated this episode sent me Daddy Longlegs, so it has pride of place in our coming of age collection. If you want to go farther back in time, Farthing Hall is a younger person writing to an older friend and kind of making observations on their life. Really excited to find a Western. I love a good Western. At some point, I'll talk to you about Lonesome Dove, but this is already getting really long, so I won't drag you into that conversation today. But very fun to get a Western in the mix, and then two more traditional young adult novels. Steve Kluger is amazing. We're going to see him on in another section as well. Love his writing. Do I have any Columbo fans with me? I love Columbo. I also love original Law and Order, even though I know it does glorify cops, and I do not wish to do that, obviously, but there's just something about that Lenny Briscoe. But if you would like some mystery with your epistolary reading, here you get some different voices, some different documents, and that fun of snooping and solving the case. I'm certain there are more of these out there, but I tried to find for you one of the oldest, one that gets cited more often, and of course that's going to be Sayers, and then a more recent addition to the canon, so Janice Howlett there. All right, looking at some different voices, some LGBT voices when it comes to epistolary novels. The early journals of Will Burnett is difficult to track down, but it was such a wonderful reading experience for me. I've had it for years, and sometimes I just go back to it to just feel good about life. Almost like Being in Love. I told you Steve Kluger was coming back. Very adorable book. More recent is How You Lose the Time War, and that one is going to be Sapphic. Because You'll Never Meet Me, I promised I would talk about a writer that was able to balance two very different voices. Leah Thomas blows my mind in this book because she's created two amazing characters. They are very unconventional, and she gives them both such unique voices. The fact that one writer can do that, really impressive. I just bought The Scandalous Letters of B&J, so I cannot tell you exactly how wonderful it is yet, but I'll let you know. I could talk about Wilkie Collins for hours. I love Wilkie Collins. Um, I try to get my students into Wilkie Collins every semester by advertising him as a sort of grown-up Scooby-Doo. The Woman in White contains bombastic, out-of-this-world, ridiculous characters. The villains are amazing. The heroes are amazing. Marion is sort of a prototype, I think, um, for an early version of maybe non-binary, maybe trans. You have to meet her. And she shows up again in The Dark Clue, which is a much more recent novel incorporating those characters. So if you have not made Wilkie Collins part of your life, do it. Some people try to advertise My Dear Wilkie as a sort of budget Dickens and say, oh, Dickens was where it's at. Wilkie is where it's at. And not just these books, but all of his other novels, The Law and the Lady, if you want to solve some mysteries, but get some Wilkie into your reading life if you have not done so. One of the things that really strikes me about listening to music, and it honestly has for a long time because my dad was a big music lover. I inherited his album collection. I miss him very much. But he would talk to me about the artists because rock and roll was sort of new for his generation. I mean, they're coming out of what my generation thinks of as oldies, sort of that Righteous Brothers kind of pop. And so he really dug into those artists because it was part of his teenage personality. And he would tell me who was alive and who was dead. And he had pictures from visiting the grave of Jimi Hendrix, whom he really admired. So now when I hear music, I think about whether those artists are with us or whether we're hearing kind of these ghost voices, and it adds a layer of poignancy that gets me. And I'm a huge Rush fan, as you will learn as we spend time together, and I have not gotten over the loss of Neil Peart yet. It just breaks my heart. So two books that look at life and death writing. Love Letters to the Dead is a YA, in which the author is, which the narrator is writing both to the sister that she has lost as well as to celebrity figures that have passed on. And then in Freedom and Necessity, one of the writers is thought to be deceased, so that causes interesting Dickensian complications. You can't go through an epistolary discussion without mention of Frankenstein, so here it is. And I thought that a fitting marriage here would be Flowers for Algernon, because both feature the alteration of a human, the creation in some ways of a human. So maybe something to consider together if you have not read them before. Remember all those pesky emails we talked about earlier? So we write a lot in the workplace, and there's a lot of discussion with AI over whether or not we should be writing any of it or if anyone's reading any of it. It's all very depressing. But here are two books that dig into the communication that we experience in the workplace. One is in academia, so close to my heart because I have received, or rather I have attended many a meeting that should have been an email. Oh, so many. And then Attachments, kind of a cute one. It's a third party looking at emails going back and forth. So back to that snooping that we all love to do. It's October, so I would be remiss if I did not mention the spooky things. So here are a list of horror books. I will recommend World War Z in the audio format because it has some very beloved voices. David Ogden Stiers, Mark Hamill, Alan Alda. all make appearances, and that's just part of a star-studded cast. I have not yet made it to the David Ogden Stiers part, but I very much hope that I recognize him when I do. You can quibble with Carrie. It's not completely in letters, but it comes up so often that I felt like I had to add it to the list. Another book marriage for you, and I do appreciate you sticking with me if you've made it this far. I know that we're torn between doing a deep dive into the books, but also leaving you with something to discover. So trying to give you sort of flights of books the way that you might sample chocolates together or taste wine together. So both of these are about very different obsessions, one with an aging actress, the fan, and one with discoveries in Egypt. But I thought that they would make a nice marriage since they delve into the same realms and use that same format. All right, to wrap us up here, I wanted to include some things that are adjacent to the epistolary novel. I couldn't not include Your John just because what you have here is the description of a sapphic relationship. There's going to be 3 people involved in the relationship and a great deal of tragedy as it progresses, unfortunately. But I thought it was worth bringing to your attention because I was very happy about the discovery. If you've not heard about the series Letters of Note and you like to read letters, it's wonderful and ongoing. There's one for war, there's one for grief. I am personally attached to the one about cats. No doubt you can hear the cats behind me tearing up a scratcher as we speak. The Light Keepers is not epistolary, but it does feature letters and journal entries as central to the text. It's one of the most unique and eerie books that I've ever read. Sometimes it randomly pops into my head when I'm just walking around, so it had such an effect that I wanted to share it with you. As always, thank you for spending time with me and talking about letters and books in the form of letters. You can reach me at navalianlibrary@gmail.com or leave me some comments if there's something that you want to see. And apparently to make these particular slides show up in our discussion, I have to keep talking. So here is a list of books that were mentioned in this episode. The order that they appear in is the order that they appear in on the slide. So there's nothing very exciting or interesting going on here. Still more books that appear. Want to give you a quick tip for collecting some cheap books. Thrift Books and BetterWorldBooks.com are 2 of my favorite places to look for cheap books. Also, make sure to support your local bookstores and your indie booksellers. Still more books that were mentioned today. Mentions number 3. Again, if there's something that you think should have been in the list that you want to alert readers about, I love to add books to my list, so please let me know. Anyone who is familiar with the Monty Python credits where people keep getting sacked, that is what I'm feeling like. And we have finally made it to the end, the final mentions of books in this particular podcast. Thank you for spending time with me. I really enjoy doing this. It's something new and just sort of for myself, so no professional credentials whatsoever, just kind of throwing some books at you, but not in a way that would cause you harm or injury, only lovingly. Hope you found something to read.